Hey everybody, got Coach Jesse and Coach Rob here, and we're sitting down outside of TREBEL to discuss kind of you know the path to mastery in whatever you might be doing, whether it's fitness related. Personally, for me, it's martial arts or whatever your job, and some of the hiccups that you can expect, things that happen to all of us on that path towards mastery, and then how you can overcome it.
Yeah, I'm really excited about talking about this. The path to mastery, cool concept. I'm still on my journey to even understanding what in the heck the path to mastery looks like. But in its basic sense, in basic terms, that's the concepts that we learned from just watching videos, hearing other folks talk about it. And this path, which at first I thought was something that you attained, this path to mastery was actually something that we were trying to include, and we finally did include in a lot of the beginnings of TREBEL, and in the symbol for TREBEL, the delta, and just on the onboarding process with our clients, potential clients, what that looks like. So yeah, excited to talk about this.
Yeah, and I think probably the concept of mastery as it applies to fitness or what we do, I don't think it registers with a lot of people at first glance, because you think, oh, what, you're just lifting up barbells, or you're going for a run, or you're trying to get back in shape. But when you break down kind of the core elements of what we do here, and this is kind of getting geeky, but in terms of whether it's gymnastics or barbell movements or whatever it might be, each of these are kind of disciplines that require a lot of time and a lot of effort in order to get good at. And it's naive of people to come in and think that it's going to be easy, or if it's going to be super quick to get really good at them. Obviously, our job is there to guide them and do it safely and to onboard somebody appropriately. But once you're kind of off on your own and you're in the group classes, it's very easy to hit these plateaus and to not know why exactly you're hitting them, when deep down it's because these things are difficult and they're going to take time to understand and get better at.
Yeah, one of the just life lessons that I look back at my time at Virginia Tech, when I was specifically as an athletic trainer early on in my career as a student trainer. And I was an athlete, and I was an athlete, middle school, high school, and even in college playing rugby. But a lot of the varsity athletes that I dealt with weren't what I considered the athlete that was. I guess what I'm trying to say is they were very balanced. They were really balanced, not only athletically, but their family life, socially, and academically. And that was something that honestly, for me, with a lot of the athletes that I kind of grew up with, we were kind of unbalanced, and we were totally all about the sporting aspect. And so what I saw was these say a soccer player, female soccer player, who really into her craft. She's going in and hitting the weight room, going to practice, doing all the things that that an athlete would do, but also studying, going a little bit extra, above and beyond, and getting involved with the community. And I'm sure that there are times when it was really difficult. There's a lot on his plate, and so I think about this, and I'd experience it, kind of my peers, and then what do you know? 5 or 10 years down the road, 15 years down the road, you notice that that person wound up going to medical school, and now they're a doctor, right? And so, kind of putting the pieces together, how does this apply to mastery? There's a lot of lessons, indirect lessons that we can learn through going through the actual hardship. So, when you first start off, things are a little bit easier, and then really, as you get going, you have the big plateaus where there's nothing really happening. And as we know, it's during those plateaus where that's where all the good stuff happens. We just realize it during those peaks or even in those valleys. But what I think is really cool is that it really doesn't matter what it is. Say the soccer player trying to go through school, get a degree while fulfilling all the obligations, or parenthood's another one where you go through a couple years at the beginning where it's a really tough endeavor, then you get out on the other side and you're better for it. The physical realm, learning how to do a new skill that's very foreign to you, and getting through that, and coming back in when you don't want to, and getting, coming out on the other end. Yeah, you may be better physically for it, and you definitely are, but it's those lessons that you learn along the way that apply to all the other stuff out in life. And I find that really cool about the path to mastery.
So the path to mastery can be seen in a lot of different fields, but what does it look like? What the general archetype? What can we expect from starting something new to maybe, once you've had 6 months to a year to 2 years into something, and then say 5 years down the road? Generally speaking, what does that path look like?
Yeah. So at first, there's going to be there's usually either you have no idea what's going on, or you have a little bit of a relative success. And once you actually start having a little bit of success, that's when it's kind of like
that called? The newbie gains?
Yeah, the newbie gains. There you go. And they're the best thing and the worst thing in the world for you. They're great because they kind of get you hooked. I think about playing the guitar. Once you learn how to strum a few chords, it's like, oh man, I'm good to go. And so once you get that, that's like whatever you're doing, whether it's hitting a golf ball. The first time you hit that golf ball right, you learn how to sing. You're doing a science experiment and it actually goes well for the first time. Wherever you have that first bit of kind of success, that's really cool. And the fortunate thing is that if you practice and you keep getting after it, you're going to have some success. The unfortunate thing is the rate of return and the rate of success is going to slowly diminish as you get going. That's the way it is for anything. But if you're persistent enough, and I don't want to say this come off in a bad way, but if you're mature enough to stick with it, it's real simple for a 3-year-old to fail at something and then quit, right? And we kind of give them a pass. As an adult, we would like to think that if something's worth doing, that we would see it through and stick with it. But what happens, unfortunately, is whether it's 6 months in, a year in, year and a half, upwards of 2 years, it's almost impossible to get into anything new, especially fitness, 2 years in and not hit that sticking point and that plateau.
And can I jump in here for 1 second?
Yeah.
I think in what we do, it's particularly stinging to hit that plateau because the newbie gains are probably even greater than in a lot of other disciplines because you're dealing with that neurological adaptation that accounts for a lot of the strength gains early. Sometimes we progress extremely fast in fitness and you're able to add more weight in the bar, or be able to do something you haven't done before. And it's not really because your muscles have adapted, it's because you're just better at firing those muscles. So it's particularly harsh when finally everything catches up to itself, and then 6 months in, those gains really plateau. Harder and faster than, say, wood and maybe guitar or something else. But go on.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the worst things you can do is, and we see it, we especially see it with our women, where they have no problem starting off, easy. It's like, it's like, oh, hey, let's lift this bar and a slide, and they do a really good job up to a certain point. And I don't know whether it's peer pressure or whether it's just not wanting to see things through, but it's the jumps at the beginning, I feel like, or I'd say the beginning, after about 6 months in that mid-range, are probably a little too high when it comes to, say putting weight on the bar, and then the expectations come with that. So I think, especially our women, stereotypically speaking, start off doing well, but then they have that jump. Our men almost always, they're the hard heads. They want to start off a little too heavy, and they have to learn that a little bit earlier. But it's kind of like anything in life. It's not. The answer isn't at any one of the extremes. The answer usually lies in the middle. And more than anything, what I've found is that just showing up with a positive attitude and managing your expectations is it's a recipe for success right there.
Yeah, and just to interject on a personal note, Jesse mentioned that consistency is so important. So I'm going to bring this back to martial arts, which is very similar to fitness, but obviously there's a belt progression where you get awarded something based on your skill level and your knowledge. But about 2 years into when I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I really felt this rut. And for this particular case, it lasted for what seemed like over a year. And what you're going to find is during the plateau period, plateaus exist because the next step is going to be this huge incline. And for me, it was incredibly valuable to hear from some of the senior folks around me and know that plateau is coming. Once I was in it, to talk about it with other people and understand that it's normal, and then to kind of anxiously await, even though I knew it might take a couple months, a couple of years, that I know with consistency and discipline that the increase in skill level is going to come. So to kind of level set from the beginning, and then once you're in there, to realize that it's okay, and then to look forward to eventually the progression that will come. I think to think about it past, present, and future is really important for tackling those inevitable plateaus that are going to be coming.
Yeah, absolutely. You need reaching out for help. Obviously, is that's pretty darn important. And one of the first steps, George Leonard in his book, when he kind of talks about the path to mastery, the very first step is to find a mentor, find an expert in that field, and seek their advice, and basically, work under them. And that what's really important is, so we say, okay, show up. Now showing up. If you don't show up, if you don't go to your guitar lesson, your singing lesson, you don't go to practice, then that you're going to have some trouble. So you have to show up. But at the same time, you don't want to beat your head against the wall doing the same thing over and over if that's not going to help. How do you know? How do you differentiate between, well, I'm showing up and I'm doing the work, and versus, okay, I'm showing up, I'm doing the work, but maybe the work needs to be different. And that's really where the reaching out comes. We see a lot of folks kind of throw their hands up in the air and say it's not working, and decide on their own that the best path to take is just to not show up, instead of reaching out and saying, hey, I'm having some difficulty, what's going on? The mentor can have a conversation and say, okay, we need to either just eke it out, just keep showing up, keep working hard, or it could be, let's change some things up.
All right, so it's going to wrap it up here for us, about 10 minutes in.
Cool.
We appreciate the listen, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about the path to mastery in the future.
Cool. Thanks, Rob.